Have you ever found yourself on a hill, you kind of run out of gears to switch to, you're just coming to almost a grinding halt? You have to stand up on the pedals and really crunch through it. Well, that's because you may have the wrong setup on your bike as far as cassettes go. When we're talking about cassettes, I'm going to specifically talk about the rear cassette because for the most part, it's the most successful for people. If we're talking about the front cassette that's on the front on your cranks, it's a little bit more difficult to work with, as the standard athlete usually does not have the tools to take it off and put it back in and mess with all the ball bearing. It's kind of a hassle, it's kind of a pain. I haven't tried it personally, but I've watched somebody repair it on my bike, and it's a big, huge pain in the butt. So we're going to be talking specifically about the cassette on the rear because it's the most accessible, the most low-hanging fruit for an athlete to go and change to get some more benefit on a challenging course, depending on what race you're heading for. But if you do have problems, especially in the hills, or maybe you're on a flat, so you run out of gears, that's what we're going to focus on today, talking about your cassettes on your bike, specifically the off-season focus, because like I keep reiterating, if you're going to make changes, the off-season is the time to do it. You don't want to be in the bulk of your training leading up to a race, fiddling with your cassettes, your seats, getting a new bike, trying to find different shoes, just different wetsuits, and messing around with that. You don't want to be figuring that out a month before the race. You want to figure that out 2-3 months when you're doing the bulk of your training on the gear that you're going to race with. So let's talk about cassettes. So the gear ratio combines front and rear gear. So you've got the big ring and the small ring typically on your standard either time trial bike or road bike. Some may have that third smaller gear ring. And then you've got the cassette on the back. You got 9, I think we get here 9, 10, 11, 12 speed. I mean, it's getting crazy out there what they're putting out there, but 9 speeds might be kind of the high end for the mountain bike people, just because you're not going to need that high end speed typically on a mountain bike course, or maybe some flats, some opportunity there. But so there's different ranges. You could have 3 gears on the front, or 3 cogs on the front. You can have 11 or 12 cogs, or 9 cogs on the back. So depending on what you're doing, and make sure you pay attention. If you're getting a bike out there, older models may be 10 speed, and everything these days, usually for road bike and tri bikes, are 11 speed. So if you're looking for wheels or tires or something like that, you might have to convert it, or you might buy something that may not work. So make sure you're got at least a basic amount of knowledge as far as that bikes and the cassettes and the cogs and the numbering and all that goes. But we're going to specifically talk about typical front end is like a 5339. So the big ring has 53 teeth, the small one has 39 teeth. And like I said, I kind of go with whatever's stock in the bike, especially off the shelf. Usually I don't. Maybe I should. Maybe we all should pay a little bit more attention to, especially mine was a quintometer, so you order it online and you get it from there. You do probably have an opportunity in that situation to change out the crank if you want to. That might be an opportunity. If you're buying something kind of off the shelf at a bike store, typically you're going to get what's on there. You may be able to negotiate that as something different. So if it's something wild, you know that you live in kind of hilly area. In Kansas City here, we've got quite a few hills. If you're living in Lake Tahoe, California, and you like to go out there and do nothing but climbing hills all day, maybe that's pretty important. Usually in a flatlander area, in Kansas City, you can find enough flat areas. It's not that big of a deal, so they may just kind of throw out standard crank sizes and gear cog sizes and teeth. So that's something to pay attention to. Kind of ask, do your research. There's plenty of information out there to go to the website to really dig into what that means for you and kind of get a good idea of the opportunities you want to have with that. But we're gonna make the assumption you got what you got on the front, and you're just gonna have to work with it unless you're going something extreme like one of my athletes at Patagonia Man, and that was just nothing but climbing. So I think she changed the crank set to a compact crank from standard and got a little bit more ability to do climbing because that's all they did out there. And she also changed her back gearing as well. She went to like a 38 for the largest gear on the back. So typically you come up with 1132, 1125, something that typically, you're not going to see much mountainous terrain. You're not going to do a lot of climbing. So just pay attention to what's on that back as well. You can physically count the gear teeth. You can also look on there. If they're lined up just right, you can see there's a little marking on them what the gearing is. If you're buying a cassette pretty much on the side. So this one just happens to be one I have sitting around. They've got it marked here to 1225. So on the package, yeah, 9/12/25. So this is a little bit different, but like I said, this is a 9-speed, so this is something I don't even have a 9-speed bike anymore. So this just kind of happens to be sitting around, something you throw on eBay probably. So you can find out when you buy the cassette, it should have on there what is marked at. So make sure you know, because this one's 9/12/25. This is marked 12/25. So just make sure that you do your homework wherever you're buying something. As I said, I don't use that one, so I'm not really concerned what it is. But usually you're going to start with the 11. You may get 11/25. That's why I kind of came standard on my bike, and that does decently for me here around Kansas City climbing hills. Usually I don't run out of gears and get to I do get to the lowest gear, but usually I have enough gears to get down to the lowest gear to go up a steep hill or something like that. So it's not that big a deal. I don't spend copious amounts of time climbing terrain, but you do need to be mindful of how many cogs are on the back. So that the cog count, how many actual gears are on here. So you have like 9, 12, whatever. So you need to know that, because that's going to tell you how many cogs you got. But then that's the cog count here. So it's a 9-speed, but the teeth count, so 12 on the smallest gear and 25 on the largest. So a 12/25, that to me is more set up for climbing. So probably more of a mountain bike kind of gear, which is my stuff. Well, I suspect because it's been sitting there for a while. So something like that. It's got 9 cogs. The biggest gear has 12. The smallest one, or take that back. The biggest one has, see how confusing this can be? The biggest one had 25. The smallest one had 12. So, like I said, if you already got it on your bike, you can sit there and literally figure it out and count it. This one's so kind of covered in grease and dirt a little bit. It's kind of hard to see the markings on the teeth, but you could go through it. It's written on there. So when you put them on there, I say that because, like I said, this right here is what I use in races. It's an 808. And I had to actually have it converted to be 11-speed to work with my bike. But they put the gear on, I kind of had to pick one that was middle of the line, because I don't like replacing stuff. And typically I'm not doing mountainous terrain. I did Lake Tahoe in 2013, which that was my first Ironman. I really wasn't as knowledgeable. Looking back at it, I would have changed my gear. It wouldn't matter anyway, because I got a transition and a spoke popped, and it gave me whatever wheel I had on the tech bike. So that's what I ended up with. So I had no idea what that was. Anyway, I digress. Getting too far into the weeds. But you need to pay attention to what comes with your bike. Or if you have the opportunity, if you're buying a bike, to switch it out. If you live in a terrain area, a high terrain area, maybe you go 11/32 to get a little bit more climbing. Like I said, mine came with 11/25. So Quintana Roo is out of Chattanooga, Tennessee, which actually has some decent amount of hills, but it's kind of rolling hills. So their minds that maybe, hey, that's pretty typical of people who do that here. So you're going to get what you're going to get, but you may have the opportunity to change it. Quintana Roo you could change quite a few components on your bike. You get to the bike shop and they got the bike there, it'd be like, hey, by the way, I want to swap out the cassette. I want 11/32, or I want 11/30. I want something else, or I want a 12, whatever. I'm going to be doing, I'm going to be doing hills, and I love them. I just want more gear to work with. So, but that comes into play. Pay attention to your race terrain. Like I said, I had an athlete do Patagonia, man, and it was just nothing but riding mountains. So if you're riding mountains, if you're going out to Colorado, maybe it's time to have an extra cassette on hand to swap it out and change it. Make sure, as I said, that was my race wheel. I also have my training wheel that I just ride around all the time. If they are different cassettes and you're training differently and you go out race day and you have a different cassette on there, it may cause you problems kind of adapting during the race. So I highly recommend, if you're going to change your cassettes, especially like Ironman Tulsa, there's going to be a lot of climbing on there. So you may not need that top end gear, that 11-tooth gear, or maybe go down to 12. There may not be opportunities where you just kind of set it, forget it, and you just crank along and ride along. But know your terrain. There may be opportunities where you're doing that, but if it's just slow, gradual climbs uphill, if it's in a headwind or something like that, high end, you may not need to worry about that. When I say high end, going down to the smallest cog on the rear wheel, that's where you get the most speed. So you got your derailleur that'll be the furthest away from it. So you got the largest pulley system going on. So you're getting the most speed out. So when you're in the high gear, that's when you're climbing. So this potentially is where you want more teeth. So maybe personally for me, my bikes are 1125. So this may be an opportunity for me to go to 1130. I have a little bit more on the backside, but as I mentioned, Tulsa isn't necessarily steep, mountainous terrain. It's kind of more gradual climbs and stuff. So personally, I may not need to go back and adjust, but both my bikes have the same cassette on the back. So I'm doing my training, and my direct ride trainer has the same cassette. So going, I have 3 different cassettes I got to work with. So make sure that they all match. So pick what you're going to do for your race, for your terrain, put it on your bike, and make sure it's on everything you're going to use. These cassettes are not cheap. This one was $40 and pretty straightforward, but once you start going to the 11 speed, 12 speed, stuff like that, I mean, they're going to be $75, $80. But small price to pay when you're training for a full Ironman and you're going to do your full Ironman. You don't want to run out of gears, especially if it's mountainous climbing. If you're doing St. George, I would definitely look in your cassettes, start training that way. Start training as if you're going to be riding the course during training, because you don't want to get the race day and be like, oh, you got to get used to this. I don't have to pop in gear like I used to. You don't want to have to adapt on the fly during a race or something like that. Climbing gears typically require going up and count for the largest rear cog. So I kind of hit on that. So higher than 32. So as I mentioned, my bike came with 1125, and there's plenty of opportunities where, like I said, there's not really steep climbing around Kansas City. There's hills, but not steep, just mountainous climbs where I'm in the lowest gear, just cranking for a mile or something. So if you're looking for climbing, you may consider 32 or 38. So once you get to that point, the largest or the smallest gear may go up to like a 12. So you may lose the opportunity for just flat land speed. So it's kind of give or take. If you're going to spend more time climbing up the hills, you may want to go back and get a higher tooth count on the largest gear, but you may lose the tooth count on the smallest gear. So you just got to kind of weigh all this stuff, especially when you're going through. Do your research. Off season's the time. You're not out there racing. You're not out there, spending 6 hours on the bike. Spend a little bit of time on the computer doing a little bit of research. So it might also mean less gearing options for speed on the flat. So I kind of hit on that. So suddenly you're in a 1238, 1230, 1240. I don't even know if they make 40. Like I said, I'm not a bike mechanic. I know enough to be dangerous. I know enough to take my bike apart and put it back together. But if you told me to take off the crank arm and replace something in there, I don't want to touch it. So, and especially, we get into the day and age of DI2 and electronics and all this other stuff. Definitely have your bike shop kind of on board with you. Talk to your bike shop mechanics. They know all this stuff. So bounce off them and say, hey, I'm going to hit Ironman Tulsa. Largest grade is 5%, 5,100 feet of climbing. What do you think of my 1125? And I've been here for a while, and I ride around Kansas City. I'm pretty comfortable. Terrain's pretty similar. They may go, well, I think you could be okay, or maybe you go to a 1130. But do it for all your bike. Do it for your road bike if you're gonna ride it. Do it for your tri bike. Do it for your race wheels, your training wheels, and if you got a direct ride trainer, do it there too, because you don't want to be out there riding a Swiss course in 1125 and you go out on race day and you got 1132. You just don't want to do it. So make sure that you're consistent across all platforms you'll be riding the cassettes. So I know this is just kind of a Spitfire kind of lesson in cassettes. It's, as I mentioned, you saw in this video, it's easy to get confused because the higher numbers equals easier gearing, not necessarily more speed. It's counterintuitive to when you're thinking about higher numbers and less speed and more climbing, higher spinning, and you're working hardest in the lowest gear and working easiest in the biggest gear. It's the pulley system. It's figuring all that out, and it's, like I said, it's not, unless you take the time to kind of dice through it, read up online, kind of know it by heart, you're really not going to get into it. Like I said, I kind of set it, forget it. Maybe this is the opportunity, probably for Ironman Tulsa, to maybe look at a little bit different gearing. Like I said, though, I need to invest in my race wheel, my training wheel that I'll ride outside, and in my direct ride trainer. because it's going to make a difference training on different gears you're going to race on. So hopefully that kind of helps you out, clears a few things up. As always, you could email me back, video comments, anything like that. I'll be happy to help you out.